Broadcasting straight to you from a spaceship currently parked at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, watching a diver slowly running out of oxygen. Funny, that guy looks a lot like Ed Harris. But it couldn't be Ed Harris, right? Could be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Strange World, where the truth is often stranger than fiction. I'm your host, Mark Sargent, the creator of Flat Earth Clues, which propose that all of us are living inside a Truman Show enclosed structure, thousands of miles wide. Check it out at enclosedworld.com or just Google Flat Earth Clues. If you can't find it, you're probably not using a computer. Could be using a toaster. My good friend and personal wingman for the show normally would be Jonathan from Jersey, but I can't find him at the moment. Hopefully nothing has happened to him, and if he gets back, he may jump on here in just a minute if I see him calling her. But no worries. If somebody else wants to join me to be co-host tonight, that's fine too. If not, we're going to go into the mailbag first, and I'll kind of talk to myself and bounce ideas off of myself. Probably won't be as interesting as bouncing it off of other people, but it's no worries. We'll get through it. So let's get right to the mailbag. And you know what? I don't think we're going to open up phones right now because I don't know what's going to happen. Because remember, I'm running Windows 10. So the mailbag, we got, every week I get interesting emails. And thank you for everybody that sent emails over the last week. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. And again, you guys are finding the information out faster than I can. And I love the internet hive mind. It works wonderfully. So let's get right to it. First email shout out is to Aaron from Wichita, Kansas. And he says, "Hey, Mark, I just watched your video with the flight instructor and remembered reading this article. This article is from 2011, and I haven't seen anything like this since. The article is about Lockheed Martin airships. A couple of things stick out of the story. First, they say about these Lockheed blimps is the geostationary positioning coupled with the modern communications technologies gives the airship capabilities on par with satellites at a fraction of the cost. Then they say that it gives the military the ability to communicate in remote areas such as those in Afghanistan where mountainous terrain frequently interferes with communication signals. This is another nail in the ball Earth fake satellite, that's a tough sentence, fake space satellite coffin. And then he gives me the article link. And yes, thank you, Aaron. I was kind of aware of those because that technology, they've been toying with that since the 1960s. If anyone wants to look that up, look at blimp satellite technology on YouTube. You'll find some neat stuff out there. There's some black and white footage, but it's good quality, and I absolutely recommend it. So yeah, just another nail in the coffin. You're absolutely right. So who else do we have here? So that was Aaron. The second email was from Richard. I'm not going to use last names. If you guys want, by the way, if you feel that that you want the credit for this, please say that, hey, you can use my whole name. But from Richard, he says, "Hey Mark, when I came upon your flat Earth stuff, it made me remember my flight instruction I took in 1975. I have been a pilot since 1975. When I started flying, we were still using the Loran system. One of the techniques used for keeping a level flight was to pick a spot on the windshield and align it with the horizon. Hard to believe that I was so unaware at that time that the Earth is not round." Yeah, thank you, Richard. And, he was listening to the flight instruction guy. And again, everyone's just inspiring other people. So thank you, Richard. Here's a fun one. You're going to like this. This is from Taylor. And it's spelled different. It's not like Taylor Swift. It's Taylore. I'm assuming it's a woman. In fact, when you hear this, you'll probably say, duh, of course it is. "Hey, Mark, I hope you're doing well. I recently started taking a look at the Flat Earth theory and have watched over 50 videos when I came across your Flat Earth Clues full-length documentary. It is absolutely compelling and brilliantly done. Just wanted to thank you for all your outstanding work with getting the word out about the flat Earth. And we'll talk about more about getting the word out here in a little bit. I also have to compliment you on your DJ-like voice quality. Your voice is as smooth as butter, and it has such a hypnotic quality to it. I have used breast hypnosis videos in the past, and there was one particular one that was my absolute favorite because of the speaker's smooth, hypnotic voice. I listened to that recording so many times just to listen to that amazing voice. I know this isn't the usual intellectual question that you were no doubt accustomed to, but I have to know, were you the speaker for that hypnosis video? Thanks, Taylor. No, Taylor, I was not the speaker for the breast hypnosis video. Although I know exactly what you're saying, because every once in a while I'll run into somebody with a voice. It gives me that weird tingling thing on the back of your neck, and usually in fact the last guy that really did it for me, last person I should say, was Bob Ross, that painter. Would paint happy little trees. I would listen to him. I would, not on drugs, not on any substance whatsoever, just staring at the screen and just hypnotized by his pace and timing. It was wonderful to listen to. So thank you, Taylor. And the next one, the one I really want to get to, though, you guys are going to like this one. This is from a guy named Ian. And Ian, and we'll get into the, spreading the word here, real soon. But Ian literally took my the quote I put at the end of every clue, and that is ask questions. He took that literally, and he's really started putting it out there. And I got to applaud this guy. What Ian started doing was, and he's over in the UK, over in Great Britain, he started emailing astrophysicists from different universities around the country, over there in England, and asking them seemingly innocent questions. And well, the responses he was getting was pretty interesting. But so he sent me copies of multiple people that he had emailed to, and and Sean McCrary. Hang on, hey, sorry I'm late. Yeah, Sean, if you're listening, hang on one second. Sean McCrary, if you remember him, he's the missile guy, and I was going to grab him real fast. Let me see if I can add him into this call. 1 second. And I don't know if I can. Add to group. Sean, are you there? Sean McCrary. Contacting him right now as we speak.
Hello.
Hey, Sean. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. I was going through the mailbag. Were you listening to the show?
I wasn't. I just caught on. I knew you were about to be.
Perfect.
Doing it.
Perfect.
So,
no worries at all. Nice to have you. Jonathan is MIA at the moment. I do not know where he is. Hopefully, nothing has happened to him.
That's weird because I just talked to him about an hour ago.
Really?
Yeah, I talked to him on the phone. He called me on the cell phone.
That's weird. Yeah, because 3 hours ago he was bugging me and says, "Hey, is Sean going to be on tonight?" And I go, "Yeah, everything's set up. I think. I think you'll make it." And then I was buzzing him, and I don't have anything. So if he comes on, what we'll do is, because he has control of the soundboard, and I pre-recorded that thing from the there's John. Hang on 1 second. Let me grab him as well.
Okay.
John Mosquito. John.
Hey.
What's going on, man? You want to talk about it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
We got the posse now.
No worries. No worries at all. I was just reading through the mailbag, and actually you guys came in perfect timing because I was going to read a really cool mailbag thing that neither of you know about yet. And what we'll do is, if you're up for it, Jonathan, is when we go to the first break, if you want to take over the soundboard, if you don't want to, that's fine. I can read that PDF file that was sent. But if you do, we can, we'll drop it and then you can reattach everybody. Does that sound okay?
Yeah. I'll explain later.
All right, no worries. I got this. I got it covered. I just wasn't sure if I was going to be talking to myself for a couple hours. So no worries at all. So the mailbag. So this Ian guy out in the UK, and you guys can feel free to comment on this. So what Ian did was he literally started contacting astrophysicists at universities and kind of baiting them. and shooting out, real innocent questions, and then, kind of reeling them in, and then, really tugging on the hook and seeing what happened. And out of the 4 or 5 that Ian sent to me, this is the one that really stuck out. So I've got to read this one. All right, it'll take a few minutes, but you guys will kind of dig it. So now, hello, my name is Ian. I was wondering if you can help. Please, can you explain to me the curvature of the Earth? We are told by scientists that the Earth has a circumference of 25,000 miles, give or take. I am trying to understand at what level of curvature is over certain distances, say 5, 10, and 50 miles. I do not understand the math used to determine this and wondered if you could clarify. I realize you may not be the correct person, but I got details from the web and email, shot some universities in order. Someone might have time and inclination to help me out. Kind regards, Ian. So the guy, this particular email he sent it to was, and you guys can look this up if you get a chance, it's Nathan J. Mayne, Mayne. And he is the senior lecturer in the astrophysics group at the School of Physics in the University of Exeter. And that's Exeter out in Great Britain or UK, depending on how you want to say this, right? So this guy's, full-blown astrophysicist, right? So he responds, you guys are going to dig this. Hey, get this, right? His opening response email is, hey, Ian, and this was on the 9th, so 4 days ago. Hey, Ian, to sort of circumvent your question and get to the point, the Earth is not flat. I realized this rather odd flat Earth movement recently, and to be honest, I have heard some nonsense in my time, but this is the absolute winner. The Earth's radius is 6,300 kilometers, which gives a circumference of 40,000 kilometers, as you say, about 25,000 miles. If the Earth were a simple sphere without the atmosphere and you stood at one point, its curvature should result in about 8-inch drop-off per mile. So looking at a straight line every mile, the ground should drop off by 8 inches. The observable horizon is around, say, 3 miles away, so a drop of 24 inches or 2 feet. So I got to stop the letter right there because, as you guys both know, it's not 8 inches per mile forever. It's 8 inches times every mile times itself. So it's not, so at 3 miles, it's not 24 inches. It's 3 times 3 times, which is 9 times 8, which is 72 inches. And you're thinking, well, that's, kind of a petty thing to bring up. But this guy's an astrophysicist and he specializes in spheres. And he couldn't catch this? Come on. Anyway, so he says, on top of that, he says, of course, the fact that the Earth is not a perfect sphere, neither locally due to topography, i.e. valleys or hills, nor globally due to the action of gravity, essentially allowing the equator to bulge slightly. Furthermore, the atmosphere tends to bend and distort light in many ways. That is why it does not instantly go very dark when the sun dips below the horizon. So, measuring or observing any actual drop-off is exceedingly hard. The Earth is just too big. However, the fact that we have day and night and can observe the Earth from space are good points that it's a sphere! Exclamation point. And he ends this with this. He goes, I hope this helps, and sorry if I've misread your intention and got the wrong end of the stick. I have just had quite a few questions about Earth being a sphere or flat recently. But if this is related to the flat Earth paradigm, please, please, please don't waste your time on it. Nathan Wing. All right.
Wow.
I know. Gets better. So Ian doesn't stop. He keeps rolling with him, right? Because he figures, okay, Nathan, hi. Forgot to say I have a few pilot friends, and all of their flying experience never had to account for the curvature. They tell me the horizon is always at eye level and even 35,000 feet. I also have 2 good friends that are surveyors for probably the biggest surveying companies in the world. One of them told me that they never account for the curvature of the Earth. Wonder where they got that from. Nice going there, Ian. When measuring distances at all, how could we deal with this? Obviously, I've asked the questions, but please do the simple curvature test yourself, right? So he's baiting him again. And Nathan responds, hey, Ian, I am really sorry, but I don't have time to teach you all about this issue. I have PhD students, undergrad, etc., to meet and teach. Categorically, the Earth is not flat, and I find this flat Earth movement to be one of the most ridiculous trends in pseudo-pretend science I have heard in my entire career. I hope you eventually reach the correct conclusion. Look at the centrifugal deformation of the geopotential and atmospheric scattering. Good luck, Nathan. And you thought it would have ended there, but there's one more quick exchange where Ian says, hey, Nathan, lastly, we all thought the whole thing was totally ridiculous too. Smiley face wink. Take care, right? And then Nathan, who shouldn't have had to respond right then, his last parting shot was, he goes, listen, I am a very busy person, busy trying to advance our knowledge and understanding of the world, and I don't really have time for this. I hope that you one day will have the finances to take a private flight on the Branson-type space parabolic flight. In the meantime, please stop emailing me, Nathan.
Wow.
I know. So, several things I like about that letter. One is that Nathan knew where the head of astrophysics at this university knew exactly where Ian was going within the first paragraph, because several people have contacted him, and he did what he could to try to shoot it down, but in the end he just said, look, I don't have time for this. I'm much too busy a person. You've got to get on a private space flight.
I don't even know what to say.
I know. It's great though. So anyway, with that, I've got to mention, and this is a big shout out to, and we still have time before the first break. And I'm sorry, Sean, I know you're not chiming in yet because I really haven't asked you anything. Just hang with us because there are some.
I have plenty to say about this.
Oh, do you? Okay, good. So, but before you chime in on that, I want to mention real quick, because I promised Michelle from All Talk Radio, who I've interviewed with before, she called me today and said that there are several flat Earth people out there that are starting to organize the equivalent of what would you call that in the protest world, like a sit-in, where basically on the 18th, coming up on this Sunday, anyone in the flat Earth movement, and I'm encouraging this because why not? Let's fight fire with fire, and that is because NASA is releasing stories pretty much every other day at this point, and they're all ridiculous and they're horrible. And the idea was, and it's not my idea, but but if I had to put a name on it, I'd be calling it hitting them where it hurts, and that is sometime Sunday. You can do it over the weekend. It doesn't have to be Sunday. I recommend it anytime. If you see a NASA story in any forum anywhere where you have the ability, either anonymously or non, go in and just put a simple comment to the effect that how do you know for sure? Give them the options. It's like, is NASA telling you the truth? I don't think so. You don't have to say flat Earth. Say the other thing. Say enclosed world. Say infinite plane. Say anything. Say something simple like the world isn't what you see it is. Look into it yourself. Ask the questions, because this is important. And and she was right when it's like, look, the more exposure. Yeah, we're talking a lot amongst ourselves, but we could do so much more in the social media world. And that is, send a simple tweet. Don't make yourself look like a crazy person, or any more than you already are a crazy person, but get it out there. Fire these things off, because look at the guy we got on with us. That's Sean. Now he's putting his neck out there. I'm putting my neck out there every day. Jonathan, he's mostly putting his neck out there.
I work in a different capacity.
Exactly. He's got his own channels, but do what you can. It doesn't cost anything. Just go into a forum. Say, hey, how do you know the Earth is round? How do you know that NASA's not lying to you? So. I promised I'd say that, and I wholly, endorse it. And by the way, one more thing, and again, I'm not going to cut you off, Sean, because I want to make sure you get to talk before the break, which is Emory University is doing a Flat Earth Hoax Roundtable or Town Hall meeting tomorrow. That's Emory, Emory, in Atlanta. I do not think they're going to broadcast it live, but they are definitely going to it's going to be recorded on video, and they're going to put the whole thing on their website. And it is mandatory for first year students. So check it out, because I don't know what their motivation is, whether it's pro or con, but it's going to be very, very interesting.
Can I ask you one thing before Sean goes?
Yeah.
Are they going to have like simple chants to like, hey, hey, ho, ho, this round world has got to go?
Oh, that's great. That's really good.
I'm sorry.
For the sit-in?
That's it. I'm not going to talk much because my mouth is killing me. I was at the dentist. And that's why
no worries. Save your breath for a sec. Sean, what do you got on that the guy that was questioning the astrophysicist? What's your take?
Okay. Well, kudos on Ian, the one that inquired about everything. Mm-hmm. But this astrophysicist, Nathan, from all of his responses that you read off, according to him, he's a very smart man. I'm sure he esteems himself pretty highly. Yeah. But he just described that we live on a constant slope. Anyone that knows anything about algebra, he just described a perfect slope.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a curve; it's a hill.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Most people don't understand that when you say 8 inches per mile, it's like 1 mile is 8 inches, 2 is 16, 3 is 24, and so on. That's not a curve. That's literally just an angle, a slope, like the side of a pyramid. And this is an astrophysicist. He should know this. In fact, where's his freaking bio? I have his bio right in front of me.
Hey, Mark.
What?
Mark, can't you just get the guy the email, get his email, and then send him that chart that you were going to link to last week?
Just send it to Nathan.
Yeah,
I've got Nathan's email.
Yeah, and then put P.S. You should really learn. Just rub it in his face.
Go back to ninth grade.
Understand the difference between a slope and a curve.
I mean, look at this. I mean, his main research centers in the collaboration of the UK Met Office and the creation of theoretical framework to which to study atmospheres of exoplanets and brown dwarfs. This involves adapting and applying the Met Office global circulation model called the Unified Model for use in studying exoplanets. The guy specializes in frickin' spheres. And what, the curve? That just escaped him? You forgot that? I shouldn't pick on him too much because I know astrophysicists are going to get pounded on. So
you got to make your bio sound interesting. You got to make some type of facade to make it seem like you're not getting paid for nothing.
Yeah. Nathan, hey, if you ever want to be on the show, let me know.
I'm sorry. That might sound mean, but come on.
No.
That's your job.
That's your job
for years, and you just described a slope, not a curve.
Yeah,
you have to have a parabolic type of formula.
Yeah, but I did think it was very interesting though that he wouldn't be the first one. I mean, this guy's out in England. I mean, how many people are? Because remember, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I'll talk about maybe after the break, who said that there's only like 7,000 astrophysicists in the world. So yeah, if this movement's getting as big as I think it is, these guys are getting a lot of questions sent to them in emails, probably, through friends of friends and, occasionally the innocent one from Ian here. But, I'm sure they're probably passing this stuff around amongst each other because a lot of them probably know each other. So.
Yeah. And I just found it very interesting after the first initial email where he really didn't even approach it. He approached it, like you said, from an innocent standpoint. But the funny thing about it is he immediately got defensive and almost assumed that he was talking about the flat Earth. Like,
oh yeah,
why so paranoid, buddy?
Yeah, he knew. Who I don't know who got a hold of him first, but yeah, because a lot of people, if they want the real scoop on this, that's who they're going to try to get a hold of. It's like, well, who knows this stuff? Well, astrophysicists do, or astronomers. And they look him up online. Like this guy, he's not shy. I mean, here's his phone number, his full-blown email address, his mailing address for the college. And, if people want answers, these guys are the ones that you'd want to say, well, they go to him and say, well, come on, convince me that it's a globe. That way I can sleep better at night. So anyway, before we go to break, I want to mention that when we come back from break, we're going to talk a little briefly about a few more things, and then we're going to play in sections. If Jonathan has it queued up, if not, I will read it. The statement sent by the industrial valve. He's an industrial valve expert, and he has some really strong opinions about the International Space Station. And we'll see. It's going to be interesting because what he says basically is the ISS is impossible. How they describe it, how it's advertised, it cannot work, and which is what the submarine guy was also hinting at a few weeks ago, which was just on the air scrubbers alone. He was comparing submarine technology to what's up in the ISS, and he was saying, I don't know how they're doing it. And this guy, which is really interesting because he contacted me before anybody, before Sean, before the sub guy, before the surveyor. He contacted me way before, and then once he started hearing what we were talking about, he was like, "Oh yeah, we've got to." He goes, "I want to do a statement because I can't go on air because people will figure out it's me," even though Jonathan said he could have disguised the voice. So anyway, so we're going to go to break in here, and Sean, you're going to stay with us?
Yep.
Sean, you're going to stay, and Jonathan, are you going to be Jonathan says I may have to read it because I can't think straight. What the heck did they do to you, man? It's all right. No worries. Just
I'll say this much.
Yeah.
We will not be silenced in the face of round world violence.
Thank you. All right. We'll be right back, guys. More flat earth pain and suffering. Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent. With us is Jonathan from Jersey and Sean McCrary, missile instructor, United States Navy, and technical expert for this episode and a few others. Still with us, Sean?
Hey, what's going on?
I can hear crickets behind you, Sean. Are you outside? Sean?
I'm actually inside. They're just loud.
No worries. It's totally cool. So, okay. Before we, because what I'm going to do, just to make it easier on Jonathan, who went to the dentist and really went through apparently the gauntlet, is before I read. What I did was I pre-record stuff like this, but I have no problem reading it. It is just the letter from the industrial valve expert. But before I do, there's one more thing I want to mention, which was, I don't know if you guys caught the recent, and one of the reasons why, the big shout out, the big push, the big surge for getting the enclosed world flat earth movement into the spotlight this Sunday, the 18th. If anyone wants to go out there and just get into the forums and just start posting stuff like mad, say whatever you want, as long as it makes the earth, not look round, is part of the reason is because of things like what Neil deGrasse Tyson did this week or this couple days ago during NFL football. Did either of you guys catch that? No? Nobody?
I did not.
Okay. I will mention it to you. It is great. So I watch football on Sundays every once in a while, and even though I'm from Seattle and our team hasn't been around that long. But the Cincinnati Bengals won in overtime when they kicked a field goal and it bounced off one of the goalposts and in. So it made it in. And they won. It was a very exciting game. It was like one of the premier games of the day. But what was interesting is that Neil deGrasse Tyson sent a tweet to the NFL network about 3 or 4 hours later, saying that, and I couldn't make this up if I tried. Look this up. There's already some YouTube videos on it, saying that the reason why the football bounced off the upright and went in was because of the rotation of the Earth, because of the Coriolis effect. Now, that seems like it seems like a very, very desperate move, and it is a desperate move because we've all seen this. Look, anyone that's watched football, football's hit the goalpost constantly, like every other week in the pros, college, every week. It's been happening every week for as long as there's been football, as long as you could be able to kick a football. And nobody's ever brought this up. But for whatever reason, this year, this week, it's not even playoffs yet. We're only in week 5, I think. It's not even the playoffs. And Neil deGrasse Tyson happens to mention this tweet, and the NFL network, they were reading it, and it was all over national news and local news, and it was kind of a big deal. And I go, it's just irritating because they're barking up the wrong tree with this. Because one, jocks don't like to hear about science for the most part. I mean, that's the whole reason they're playing football, is because they're not the nerds that love the science. So I don't know, it was, but that's how desperate they are. They're trying to hit a demographic here that, they would just ignore them. So that's my take on it. I just thought I'd throw that at you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that just really seems like he's just really trying to reinforce it however he can.
Yeah.
And, it's always convenient that they want to mention the Coriolis effect, but usually it's always in the light of really long distances. But I guess that's over a few yards.
Yeah, he was saying it was like a third of an inch per 40 yards or something like that. Like the field goal, I'm going, really? And
how do we not miss sniper shots by like 500 feet then?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? They're listening to this right now, or they're going to listen to it on YouTube. So
Yeah.
Keep laughing. Let's all keep laughing.
Yeah, because and I've seen some of the posts where some people they haven't read all the material yet that's been coming out in the last month, and they said, well, snipers. That story just keeps popping up. Snipers keep mentioning that they have to account for the spin of the Earth at 1,200 yards or whatever. In fact, there was one guy that says at 800 yards you don't, but at 1,200 yards you do. It's going, how does that work? Exactly. It just doesn't exist at 800 yards, but at 1,200 yards, it does exist.
And 40 yards.
And 40 yards with a football that's spinning, and it's not even a round. It's not even a sphere that's hitting the goalpost. It's like, oh, there's so many things wrong with that statement. And I know Neil was probably forced to do it, but I will say this: I had given him the benefit of the doubt until now, and now it's like, oh no, he's totally in on it.
Wait, maybe he went to the same college or university as Nathan.
It's possible. I mean, next they'll tell us it's actually because of the mass of the football and the post, and it had an elliptical gravitational pattern around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. That just bothered me. So.
You don't have this problem in football in other countries. I mean, where football is soccer.
Yeah. No,
they use a round ball. Anyway, go ahead.
They do use a round ball. Good point. Yeah, it's because of this oblong ball. Anyway, okay.
Hey, it's funny you mention oblong though, because Neil deGrasse Tyson said that we're an oblate pear-shaped Earth.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking.
There you go. Good point.
That's exactly what I'm glad you caught that.
I did not. I did not catch that.
I caught it.
See, I'm dumb sometimes. I'm dense. I may seem smart sometimes, but there's sometimes things that just fly right by me. Just seriously, like a football.
Like a football.
Okay, so I'm going to read this, and because I'm going to do it live, it's not going to be a pre-record, but you guys can break in at any point when I'm talking about this. And some of this is going to be technical, but I think it's worth mentioning because what happened was, before Sean and the sub guy and the surveyor and the flight instructor all got a hold of me, this guy came out early on, and then we finally got back together later, and he's an industrial valve and seal expert. And he did not want to come on live and or even do a pre-record because he says there's only like 5 companies that deal with this on an industrial level that deal with like military contracts and space contracts, most notably like submarines. And he said, look, I said, well, I suggested, well, what if you prepared a statement for me and I will read it? And then if anybody has questions, they can send them to me and then maybe he can address them later. So, you guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Here we go. And Jonathan can pop some more pain pills. What are they giving you, by the way?
No, I'm self-medicating.
Seriously?
I mean, the acupuncture is good. Melissa does these things. Oh my God, I'll tell you later about it. But whatever I was on, it wore off, and that was it.
Oh, that's rough.
And then I passed out on the couch, and I apologized.
That's what no, you don't have to worry. I figured you'd listen eventually, and you'd get up on the couch, and if the station was up, and you'd be like, ah, crap.
She shook me, and I thought it was Thursday. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So, per our conversation, I am sending you this letter. As we discussed, at this point, I must stay anonymous. The fluid control industry is a small village. Let us just say I am a professional in the valve industry. The point of this letter is to draw attention to certain aspects of seals, valves, and actuators that must be part of any artificial environment to maintain life and functionality. I have no special knowledge of the ISS, but there are principles of fluid and motion control that cannot be ignored. We assume that the ISS has supply systems for water, fuel, air, etc. These systems would all require valves, pumps, and seals at a bare minimum. Without systems to deliver, send, expel, vent, filter, and store these fluids and gases, life on board would be impossible. Tubing, pumps, tanks, and valves would need to be present across all of the living areas to assure, at the least, fresh air. Seals, such as O-rings, would be required throughout the ISS to hold in gases and fluids. Valves would be required to meter these gases and fluids and to maintain proper pressures. Actuators would be required to move devices such as the Canadian arm, hatch openings, etc. Anything that is not moved manually requires an actuator. Let's look at some of the questions that pose a problem. Okay, so that was the end of his little preface. And then he goes into the first thing he wants to address is seals. And here we go. For aerospace applications, the most commonly used seals and O-ring materials, and we're going to get into a couple technical things here, are GLT-type fluorocarbons, generically ASTM D1418 type 3 elastomers. I don't know that word very well, which have a glass transition temperature of negative 30 Celsius. Materials of this type that meet the new AMS 7287 and predecessor AMSR 83485 specs have a useful operating temperature down to negative 40 Fahrenheit and up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Even though this is an impressive temperature range, it appears that the ISS is being exposed to temperatures beyond this range. There are special Teflon-based seals available that can extend a little past this range, but they are not made with flexible or compressible materials. Therefore, the mating components would have to be manufactured within a millionth of an inch tolerance to prevent a seal from moving and thus leaking. Not convenient for a hatch or a fuel valve that is in constant use. Perhaps the seals are shielded from the temperature changes. Perhaps. But the outside of the ISS does not seem to show the insulation units required to accomplish this. Another problem with seals is that they wear out. Seals would have to be replaced frequently. Preventative maintenance of seals and sealing services would keep a maintenance team busy 24 hours a day. Seal replacement would require sealing off areas, cleaning and sealing surfaces, since in many cases a human hair can cause a seal to leak, lubrication, polishing sealing surfaces, or replacement of modules, etc. I do not think any of these things have been observed on the ISS. Seals also require back pressure to seal. I have no idea how a seal would function against a vacuum. We have no calculation for it. Any seal I have ever seen would simply be sucked out into space. How fuel, air, water, etc. are all contained and moved in the ISS, I have no idea. The seals of the ISS must be flawless, maintenance-free, immune to temperature changes, basically miracles of modern science. We in the industry would hold such mythical seals in awe and reverence if they existed. And that was the end of seals. And I think that's brilliant. He's basically saying he's a guy that specializes in that stuff, and he's saying whatever technology they're using, he's never even heard of it, and it goes way beyond every tolerance in every area.
Hasn't that guy watched space movies though?
Okay.
I mean, and this is the International Space Station, right?
Yes, of course.
So this is where metric and standard get along.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I hate to make a joke, but he's right. I mean, he's really right, because in the movies we see the guy, like, he'll be up in a spaceship and he's a typical Russian, so if it don't work, you use a hammer and you bang it in and it fits.
Oh yeah,
that kind of thing. Or like Sandra Bullock in Gravity. But it's like, he's right though. Like, how do you mesh it up? Like, how do you make sure the tolerances are that perfect? And
yeah.
I mean, it's not like some airlock. We always see it, and we see the sound effects. Again, in space movies, it's all that programming, right? Yeah. The door shuts, and then there's some kind of vacuum sound. It goes, shh, and then it's like hermetically sealed somehow.
Yeah,
magically.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We take it for granted. We take it, again, like a given. It's like, well, they've got the seals. They got all that stuff taken care of. People like us, and to a lesser extent, Sean, because I'm sure he's seen some of these guys working on seals and the same as we go over this, some of these things in the Navy ships. But we automatically assume, well, they've got everything covered. They know what they're doing. But this guy's coming out and saying, I have no idea what they think they're doing, because it never appears like anybody's working on anything. And this stuff is really, really labor intensive. So,
yeah. Well, just to kind of comment on one thing, I do actually have a little bit of exposure to that, because on board our ships, and I can kind of confirm what he's talking about, for our evaporation system that we use to turn salt water into drinkable, potable water, we use an evaporator system. It's 6-stage evaporator, And it is actually working underneath the principles of a vacuum, because anyone that knows anything about evap systems, you can actually boil water at a much lower temperature when it's in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Throughout
That's true.
stages. And they're constantly doing maintenance on that system. It's constantly going down. It's constantly putting us into limited water usage hours because of how much routine maintenance has to get done on it. And it's just one simple,
Was that
it's big, but it's one device, on the ship that they
Sure.
constantly have to work on.
Sure.
is that because you're cleaning out impurities all the time?
Yeah, everything. I mean, fluctuation between temperatures, salinity, impurities in the water that's coming in, seals wear down, they break down. Like he said, it really would take a 24/7 maintenance crew to constantly be getting in front of the astronauts all the time, blocking their screen time, because they constantly have to be transiting all throughout the ISS, fixing this stuff or checking on it.
So wait, it's funny you say that. Now I'm picturing when they film that chick with the big hair.
Yeah. The Medusa hair. Yeah.
The Medusa hair.
Yeah.
They're gonna have all these extras now standing in the background, like doing maintenance work.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see they're gonna make believe that they're screwing something in. They're not even screwing anything in. It's gonna be like floating like an inch above, like like a fake DJ does like a turntable.
Yeah. They'll do it carrying really basic tools. Like everybody will have a wrench or a flathead screwdriver or something like that. That's great. That's awesome. Okay, so that was seals. Let's get into valves. You think he's done? No, he is not done. Valves. He says valves would be needed aboard the ISS for many life-sustaining reasons: fuel, air, water, ammonia, etc., etc. And then he takes an excerpt from literally space.com, right? And this is from the guys that are up there, right? So this is their quote. He says, and then he comments on it. So it says, the International Space Station's active thermal control systems, the ATCS, pump fluids through closed-loop pipes. A liquid ammonia coolant loop along the station's main truss keeps the station's electricity-generating solar panels cool. An ammonia pump on the main truss failed in 2010 and had to be replaced by spacewalking astronauts. The Expedition 35 crew on the International Space Station reported an ammonia leak near that same location 3 years later in 2013. Liquid ammonia circulates through the pipes, carrying waste heat from the solar panels to the photovoltaic radiator panels, where the heat escapes into space. This keeps the solar panels cool. So then he comments. He says, so there it is, the ammonia is pumped. Pumping requires valves. What valve can function in extreme temperatures in a vacuum? Since a spacewalk was required to repair the unit, it is obviously exposed to the vacuum of space. The seal issue mentioned above would be a major problem. How would they perform degaussing? And people don't know what that is. It's the process of decreasing or eliminating a remnant magnetic field of the valve for it to function properly, since they are never grounded. When these astronauts replaced the pump, how was this accomplished without depressurizing the entire ammonia supply? How does one do that in a vacuum? I watched this procedure on space.com. It was clearly done underwater. Plastic pieces floated upwards, etc. No residual ammonia and the broken pump was emitted. No lubrication applied. The list goes on. Valves require venting. Excess pressure has to go somewhere. Is it vented into space? Would that not suck all the gases and fluids out into the vacuum of space, since there is no back pressure in space? Are gas valves vented to the interior of the space station, increasing the pressure in the living areas to dangerous levels? Valves require filtering. Are filters changed frequently? Are there 3 maintenance teams working 24/7 to maintain the filters? Because if a filter fails and stops a valve, it could kill everyone on board. Consider a commercial airliner. Consider how much maintenance one airliner needs to stay in the air. Think about the fuel pumps, the air exchange, and the seal replacement programs. Valves are maintained and changed out frequently. Now consider the ISS in this light. one little pump's change out in 2010 and a little repair in 2013? Does NASA have valves that function in impossible environments and seals made of unobtainium and unicorn tears? I am guessing no. So that was his part on valves, where he's saying that the technology, that what they're trying to do on the International Space Station cannot be possible with what they are describing. And they describe, that's why he took the quote from space.com, where he said, look, this is how they say they're doing it. And I'm telling you, they can't do it like that. Not for that long, not without replacement parts. Not happening. So there you have it.
Yeah.
So here we go.
I mean,
go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was going to say, as far as the valves go, I already know the first argument that people would try to make with that for depressurization. It would be, well, maybe they used a cutoff valve, somewhere down the line. Well, it still doesn't account for the fact that there was pressure wherever they cut it off at, whatever end they're opening it up. And like he said, he didn't see any depressurization or any bleed off of, liquid ammonium.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally hear you. Okay. So we're going to go into, so how many minutes we got for the break? 7? 8? 7?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to go into, there's not that much left, but we're going to at least cover, well, I think I can knock out the next section at least anyway. The next one's actuators. And if people don't know what an actuator is, it's an air cylinder. Actuators, or air cylinders, are the muscles of moving machinery. Pumps are the heart of the machinery that pump fluids and gases to drive the machines. Valves control the pressures and quantities of the fluids and gases. Actuators push and pull to give the machines movement. They have been used for decades to drive the Industrial Revolution forward. They are the muscles of robots that move their limbs. They hold the hood open on your car so that you can check the oil. They open and close the hatches on submarines. They drive needles that weave carpets. They are all around us in every mechanical system. Some are driven with pneumatic air pressure, some use hydraulic fluids, and some are electrical. Let us look at the types briefly. Pneumatic, otherwise air-driven. On the ISS, how would these work? The seal issue is certainly a big problem. Actuators need valves. We covered these problems already. Piston rods rely on dynamic seals and are prone to leakage. Temperature is an issue. Ice cream makers and metal forges struggle with actuators due to the extreme temperatures that they deal with. But consider that they only deal with their end of the temperature range. Ice cream makers deal only with extreme cold. Metal forges deal only with extreme heat. What kind of Vulcan technology, and I'm sure that's a Star Trek reference there, is NASA using to handle both temperature extremes, let alone in a vacuum? Hydraulic or fluid-driven. The same problems as pneumatics apply here as well. In addition, hydraulic actuators drip and weep oil. The ISS would become uninhabitable without constant maintenance. Where would the fluid be stored, disposed of, replaced, etc.? Electronic. This is probably the most probable type NASA would claim that they use. They are clean and function without the exchange of pressurized substances. What about maintenance, lubrication, degaussing, replacing motors, drives, belts, circuits, panels? Certainly, they would be prone to shorting out and requiring constant care, especially since they cannot be grounded. Consider satellites, but that's another topic. Changing out components is not like changing the brush heads on a vacuum cleaner. And let me punch out this last section. I think real quick, maybe. You know what? I'll wait till I get back before I don't think I can do it.
Can I cap on something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Sean. And then
he mentioned that the most probable one was them using electrical actuators.
Yeah.
It just so happens in my weapon system, we use electromechanical linear actuators as well.
Perfect.
And what he's saying, if anyone doesn't pick that up, if you're not running into the problem of, oil weepage and all that other stuff along with pneumatic actuators, electro actuators have a serious issue with their little DC motors wearing down quite often. I've run into it all the time, and I work on a multi-million-dollar weapon system.
Mm-hmm.
So we're constantly doing maintenance on those all the time. You know, greasing them up, degaussing, changing them out when the motor burns out. You know, it really seems like NASA needs to up their maintenance program. We don't see enough of it.
Oh, well, I was about to say, why would they have to update it? I mean, apparently things work for years on end. Yes, Jonathan.
I'm confused. Wait, don't they have space shuttles that go up and bring them deliveries and stuff?
Oh, that's a great point. And normally they would, except they shut down the entire space shuttle program how many years ago?
Darn it.
Yeah.
Never mind.
So if the space shuttles aren't bringing them spare parts, then
Amazon must. Because Amazon does everything now. Even delivers to the postal service.
They're using Amazon Prime and subcontracting SpaceX to bring them their packages. Whatever.
They're using weather balloons. Nice care package.
When we come back from the break, we're going to read the last part of the industrial valve expert's testimony on why the ISS cannot actually exist, or at least people up there. I know people are going to say, "Yeah, there's up there," but anyway, we'll talk about that when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent. With me is Jonathan from Jersey and Sean McCrary from the USS Iwo Jima, missile instructor. People ask me, by the way, why my music isn't, super creepy and doom and gloomy like other people's. Although I think Jonathan's is really good. Yeah, I think you have excellent taste in music.
Thanks, man.
But mine is in fact, if anyone took a look at what's on my iPod, they'd all say, "Holy smokes, this guy is really a Fruit Loop," because it's all really peppy, happy stuff for the most part. It's it's all upbeat, but part of it's because I grew up in the '80s, and also because I like a silver lining. I like putting a positive spin on things.
Do you have any Smiths on there?
I don't, but I know someone who's a real Smiths fan.
Right on.
And
maybe they'll loan you some songs.
Yeah, maybe they'll loan me some songs.
Do people loan songs anymore? Like they did records and cassettes?
Yeah, if somebody has some Smiths, make me a mixtape.
Anyway.
Yeah, it would take people about 2 seconds to get that reference that you threw out there, Jonathan. So thank you. It's great. Okay, so where we left off was, and the show is going to be titled, I think I'm going to title it, Industrial Valve Expert Says the ISS Can't Exist. Something like that. And people are going to say, after I'm done with this, people are going to say, well, I've seen the ISS. There's footage of the ISS. I'm not saying there's nothing flying up there. There's something flying up there, sure. But are there people on it? No, not a chance in hell. No way. I'd bet my life on it. So I'm just saying. So where we left off was, what did he cover so far? So he wrote this big letter because he didn't want to be on air talking about this because he was afraid that somebody would figure out who he was. And he talked about seals, he talked about valves, he talks about actuators, and last but not least, this is the last section of this, and then we'll kind of just wing it after that, which is maintenance and installation. And here he goes. Lastly, and probably the most important problem, is there's no machine shop. All dynamic systems require installation and maintenance. No matter how carefully designed and how advanced a system is, something will require machining. All large Navy craft, I'm looking at you, Sean, have onboard machine shops. The reason that I use ships and submarines as examples is that they are the most similar systems to the ISS that we can relate to. They are moving, large, self-contained, and functioning in hostile environments. Navy vessels must be able to repair, modify, or replace anything on board. Even under the best conditions, metal will warp, screw threads will strip out, seals will leak, welds will break, metal sealing surfaces will get scratched, tubes will crack, electronics will short out, motors will overheat, motors will freeze up, critical tools will break, belts will break, cables will snap. etc., etc. Ad
What?
infinity. What?
You sounded as crazy as Willy Wonka in that. Gene
Oh,
Wilder.
damn it! That's what I was going for too.
You did it. You pulled it
Yes.
off.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was going for the Willy Wonka rant. I was, and I say that because I actually have one of these days I'll show it on air. A Willy Wonka framed golden ticket that I actually bought from Mike TV himself. He still sells those. You can still buy them. I think he sells them on eBay for like $150.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean they're not the real full blown, authentic 1970 golden ticket from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but it's still pretty cool, and it's signed to me. It says to Mark from Mike TV, which was really really cool.
Maybe that's what they do up there. Maybe it's just a chocolate factory.
You're as bad as Jonathan. You know that? Okay, so the ISS, and thank you, Jonathan, for getting that because that's absolutely what I was going for. I think he made that rant, by the way, when he was doing that boat trip, when he was taking the family down the boat trip, and it was super psychedelic.
Yep.
But anyway, you still there, Jonathan? Jonathan, he's fixing a sandwich, isn't he? God darn it! All right, the ISS appears to not have a machine shop whatsoever. How are repairs done? Are we to believe that all the replacement parts are flawless modules that snap together perfectly every time like Legos? Are there sea containers full of replacement parts floating next door? Is there never a time that a critical threaded hole is stripped out and needs to be retapped? Do parts never warp in the extreme temperatures and need to be resurfaced? Is there welding equipment up there? Submarines have welding equipment. They can even weld underwater. What happens in the event of a structural event that requires welding? I know that Captain Kirk and Spock repairing the Enterprise using a phaser as a welder, but this is supposed to be real. Of course, the chance of fire is too great to weld, but structural damage happens and has to be calculated into the plan. As far as I know, it's not. Regarding fire hazards, machine shops throw sparks, lots of sparks. Even if you could haul a lathe, Bridgeport, and drill press up to the ISS, the danger would be too extreme. This is where NASA shot themselves in the foot. For short missions, days, even weeks, this would not be an issue. But when the missions are years long, no. The ISS is great theater, but it is not reality. Thank you, the Valve guy. So, yeah.
That is a very well put together take on all this.
Yeah. The Navy stuff that you mentioned at the end. You got
I do actually. He's absolutely 100% correct. We do have a machine shop on board, where we get parts in that are shipped into us by helicopter or by an underway replenishment.
Yeah.
And they don't always work out perfectly. And we have that machine shop on board to take care of any welding needs, any machining needs, to help everything fit together properly, because nothing's perfect. Like you said, you have to account for that hostile environment that you spoke of. And for, them having that, ISS up there, you don't see any of that machinery anywhere. It's not something that, you see. You don't see Mike in the background, with, what's her name, Medusa. He's photobombing her in her screenshot. It doesn't happen. You never see any of that.
Yeah.
And he's 100% correct. And if anyone doesn't believe me, you can go online, do a simple Google search, and look up the enlisted rate in the Navy called MR.
Yeah.
And you will know what I'm talking about. MRs are the ones that deal with working out of the machine shop on our boats.
Wow. In fact, that was the first thing that he mentioned to me, and I know Jonathan's not saying anything because we had a quick technical difficulty, and we'll try to get him back on in a second. But before I try that, because I don't think I can multitask and keep this thing going, that was the first thing that he mentioned to me when he first contacted me. He goes, "Where's the machine shop?" He goes, "Machine shops are amazingly heavy and amazingly labor intensive." And he goes, then submarines absolutely need them, and Navy ships need them, and anything that's a big hunk of metal that's self-contained needs a machine shop. You need to be able to grind down parts from scratch. That's basically what a machine shop does, and the ISS doesn't have it. So
it's just really, really long cylindrical compartments, and it's cluttered with mini shelves and fake toilets and a couple laptops and
yeah. I hear you. So what I'm going to do here real quick, and I know this is a little unorthodox, is I'm going to, because for whatever reason, Jonathan is stuck in a loop. I cannot get him back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the thing real quick, and I'm going to bring everybody back in, okay? Should take mere seconds, hopefully. Ready?
Gotcha.
Here we go. And if I can't, then Jonathan will try to initiate it on his own. I think he's listening. Here we go. Jonathan?
Hey.
Okay, good. You are there. All right, let me try Sean real quick. I'm sorry about this, guys. For whatever reason, I seem to have locked down the TFR host, which is totally cool. Let's grab Sean. Sean, you there? Sean.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, cool.
I'm here.
All right, so we're all here, and that's what it's all. That's all it was. Well, what was happening was I think you were trying to initiate the call, but I had already locked down TFR hosts, which is really odd. So anyway, no worries. It's not a problem. So, and our control panel, the team at the control panel. By the way, TFR radio, Truth Frequency Radio, real people, real radio. Jesus. I'm sorry. Let me do that one more time. Truth Frequency Radio, real people, real radio. There you go. You can
sounded really good.
Thank you. That's free. You guys can have that for free. All right. So I'm sorry, Sean. I was hoping you could do a little more of a summary as well, and that was from a Navy ship standpoint, because what he's saying is the Navy ships and the Navy submarines are about as close as we're going to get to comparing the ISS system. And what he's saying is those systems are so far removed that there's no way the ISS could be saying what they're doing. I mean, it's not real. Can't be.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I have to agree with the Valve guy.
Yeah.
And just from my experience alone, I will be fair and say that I'm not a Valve tech professional.
Yeah.
But I know enough about the inner workings of how the ship operates to know and see with my own eyes how much, of a maintenance intensive group of people have to be on standby always to service this kind of equipment.
Yeah. And you and you can attest. I mean, even on the ships you're working on. Granted, your ship's a little bigger than some of the others, but you have teams. That's all they do is just they have this huge list, and they're just repairing and swapping out stuff daily. And every 8 hours. Well, in fact, do they even have shifts? Do they run 24/7?
They literally run 24/7 because there's always someone on call. We have different watches set up on the ship that are literally waiting on standby for something to break, something that needs to be fixed routinely, whether it be preventative maintenance or corrective maintenance.
Well, wait, I said something to Mark the other day, though. I said, if you want to make a light bulb that lasts 100 years, you can make it like 3 times the thickness of the filament. They have planned obsolescence in regular China Mart stuff. So is it possible they make like higher tolerances or,
Well, here's the thing.
I have to play devil's advocate.
No. Go ahead.
I understand. Yeah. My answer to that is this. If you want to play devil's advocate, then NASA is a military-funded operation, government-funded operation. Yeah. So is our standing military. Do you think that our military just has fun having to replace parts all the time that cost a lot of money when we could build them more efficiently for our standing army, which is like one of the biggest money sinks that our country has?
Well, I don't know about fun, but I know the military-industrial complex makes a pretty penny, and so does anybody invested in Halliburton, what's his name?
Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney.
Think about this. Think about this. On the same side of that coin, you have to incorporate NASA into that same pot. Because think about how many people have their hands into NASA, so to speak, as far as all the other companies that NASA subcontracts to make all their parts.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would have a bias to not make the parts as good as you would want them to be in such an extreme environment because they don't like one-time customers?
I agree with you there, and if we were really trying to go into space, then it makes sense even more so. But like when you look at something like the F-35s they signed off on, what a debacle that is.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, just a waste. I mean, they have no problem wasting money, and like I said, somebody's making money on all those contracts. But if they really wanted to go into space, they wouldn't do it the way they're doing it now, and we would have something better than a space shuttle program in place of the space shuttle.
Yeah.
And see, though, here's the issue I have with all of it. The fact remains that because the government has their hands in it, and they have the hand in the military, obviously, that's a narrative that should have already been taken care of a long time ago, because they're claiming to be up in space and have a fully operational, forward deployed space station that they work out of for year-long projects, year on end, and they don't have to deal with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm being fair right now. I'm putting on the gloves right now because we haven't even talked about all the hazards there are other than just heat and cold in space.
Yeah.
All right. You have to sit back and actually realize and understand how much of an altitude they boast to be orbiting at, and what kind of hazards that entails, including micrometeoroids and everything else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many little things, and we could go off on the. Well, you know what? Let's go off on the ISS for a little bit, because we haven't touched on it in some time, and that is, what you're saying there. There's so many other things. This guy's just talking about the mechanical side of it, but you're right. The extreme heat, the extreme cold, the micrometeors, which when there's a meteor shower that happens, I explained this to Jaron the other day. In fact, I think it was yesterday, where it always bothered me that even though we're all told by the news, it's like, oh yeah, the such and such meteor shower is going to be out tonight. Go out and with the kids and take a look. And it seems all pretty and nice. We all see these things flying through the sky. The point is that they're going through the atmosphere and they're burning up and they're moving at a high rate of speed, and there's a lot of them. So why isn't anybody concerned about anything that's up there getting hit by these things ever? They're coming in hot. They're moving. Some of them are bigger than others. They're coming in at weird trajectories. You can say, well, none of them are, they can say, oh, well, they're coming in below the satellites, but above this layer. And it's like, really? Because are all meteor showers the same? Nobody seems concerned. It's like nobody's ever had a story. When's the last time you heard a story about a satellite that just got clipped, just got taken out? Because they would die instantly, even if it was even if they were nicked, it would, even if they weren't, rifle shot right between the eyes, the speed that those things are traveling, if you believe them, would send them into this spin that they'd never get out of. They'd become useless.
Not only that, but Mark, you're failing to see a big thing.
Yeah.
The ISS, they use gyros, they claim.
Oh, yes.
So they're using some type of inertial nav to dodge all these micrometeoroids,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And it's also why satellite 22 for the GPS systems have been down for so long.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. By the way, I have to mention that since this picture came up on screen, and we haven't been shy about it before, and that is our good friends at the DoD have been tracking this call since Sean has been on. Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least they're consistent.
I love it.
And for people this is the first one they're listening to, the story there is, and we'll try to say what we can before Jonathan's house gets raided, is totally kidding.
I'm in my underwear. That's not cool.
Nice. That would be good. That'd be good television. Let me tell you, it'd be a good cops episode.
Oh, I'm stripping naked like that Black Iron Cops. I'm going crazy. With the drugs I'm on for this tooth, I'm going to go nuts. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, well, what happens is because Sean is active U.S. Navy, we've learned that because Jonathan can track who's pinging his network, is that anytime Sean comes on with us, immediately the DoD starts pinging us. And it's great because it's not a coincidence. It happens, the second, well, not the second, but within like 30 seconds after he comes on.
No, as soon as they dial up to him on Skype.
Oh yeah, well there you go. Yeah, because they're I'm sure they're concerned that anybody that is talking about flat Earth and closed world may also give away the compromised secrets to the Sparrow missile system, which
I don't know why they're wasting so many man hours of tracking such a crackpot reject military guy like me talking about a flat world. Why would they waste man hours like that?
Good point. Good point. Well, yeah, again, I joked about it, but it was like, well, maybe you know a way, if you came out and said, with 2 household cleaning solutions and this empty chewing gum wrapper, you could render the Sparrow system useless. Here's how. And I'm sure they wouldn't.
Hey, Sean, can I ask a question now?
Yeah.
What's the ceiling service or the maximum altitude a Sparrow missile can go?
I can't talk about that.
You can't say that. Nice.
It was a trick question. That's
okay. So in case they're listening, see, he's not giving away anything. He's not. Oh, but I got to mention something. I totally forgot about this, guys, but I got to mention it to you, which is I've gotten these emails ever since Sean and the sub guy started getting involved. I get emails every week now from people who say that if they're using like a non-PC, like a tablet or a phone, if it's outside of the United States, they can't view this video on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, I had one just from Mexico, of all places. But usually it's like Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, something like that. But it's out of the country, definitely. But it's weird because it's not being blocked. It's what happens is they say, I can view all your videos, but anything with the Navy guys, it says it's unavailable. Yeah. So, and it's weird because it's not all devices. And I say, well, can you do it on a PC, like using Windows 8 or Windows 10? And they say, yeah, I can. But if I'm trying to use it on especially Android phones, so it's like somebody like it's kind of like a pseudo block. But it's not being blocked. It just says it's unavailable. It's, like YouTube will normally pull those things that say this is unavailable in your country. That's not what it says. It treats it like a technical error, even though I'm doing literally nothing different. Every video I put up is exactly the same as the one before. Same format, basically the same length. No special copyright things. Even today, I don't really have any copyright strikes. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So anyway, every time Sean's on, if anyone wants screenshots, you can email me and I'll see if I can dig them up from Jonathan. But it's true. I don't doubt it for a second because, and I kidded about this with you guys before, but that's exactly what I would do if I was. And it sounds silly because you're saying, Sean, why would I want to waste their time? It's just because of that though. They never take chances. So. They probably have. It's probably just an automated system that's recording the whole thing and using voice recognition to pick up keywords.
Can I ask Sean a question though on air? Again, you don't have to answer if you can't answer. But
God,
no, it's a serious. Is the Sparrow missile the same as an AIM-7 missile, like the air-to-air missiles they use on jets?
They are actually the same. There's small variations for it to be a ship-launched weapon compared to an air-launched weapon, but yeah, they're essentially the same missile.
Okay, cool.
Good question. And I'd completely forgotten about that. You're absolutely right, because most people think of all the other types of missiles that are underneath planes. But yeah, you're right.
Well, I know there's I guess 2 other main missiles, right? You have your folding fin air rockets that you have on gunships mainly, and then you have your Hellfires. But I guess the AIM-7 is one of the most popular ones for air-to-air missile.
And that makes sense. Why wouldn't you use, fit it for your thing? So, still there, Sean? Sean? Seriously, he did
not get dropped.
He absolutely got dropped. I'm looking at his screen, and it says it's got a skull and crossbones on it. It's really weird, and a big like a Ghostbusters, big red slash.
He actually got dropped.
Yeah, he got dropped
for that.
No,
did you drop him?
No, I did not drop him. Is he back? Sean, are you back?
Hello.
Let me try to get him back. Sean. Oh, jeez.
I won't ask any more questions.
Hopefully we did not get him into trouble. But you know what? Let's go to break. We'll figure this out.
All right.
Come back.
Sorry.
No worries. Welcome back to Strange World. I'm your host, Mark Sargent. With me is Jonathan from Jersey. And with us, maybe or maybe not on the line, is Sparrow System weapons specialist, Sean, who's been cut off every time he tries to answer a technical question. I mean, just dropped from the call entirely. So I don't know who to blame. Should I blame the DoD or should I blame Jonathan for the...
Can I throw more technical questions at him? See if I can knock him off the air.
Yeah. You go with it. We'll see if we can track this. For those of you who are listening, let's see if we can figure this out.
Are you trained in other missile systems? Like, do you have to be familiar with like the 9K-37 Buck and other systems, or do you just like know the Sparrow system specifically?
I know other missile systems.
Okay. I'm lobbing softballs right now. I'm afraid to ask more technical.
I'll put it to you this way: I will not answer which ones I know about, and I won't deny anything, and I won't affirm anything. So.
Nice. That's standard. That's standard politician answers. I can neither confirm nor deny those allegations.
Mm-hmm. I'll play nice. Let's just keep.
All right. Let's talk about Let's talk about some other things that are happening. Real briefly, but again, Sean, hang with us as long as you can because I love your opinion on some of this stuff. So to wrap up the industrial valve expert testimony, and if anyone wants a copy of it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can paste the whole thing into the description on the YouTube. But if somebody wants, the full-blown PDF, I've got on my desktop, I'll just send it to you. I mean, or you could listen to this again. I don't know if it's that interesting reading, but you kind of get the point, which is the ISS should be a heavy mechanical fluid-driven system, fluid and gas system. And every time we see any pictures about what's going on up there, it's always the same thing. It's just, people walking around in khakis and polo shirts and socks who don't seem to really care about anything. They don't seem to get grungy. The place doesn't stink to high heaven. Their hair's all weird. They don't have any hatches on the doors. And they don't seem really concerned. Again, if I was up there, I'd be in a freaking spacesuit all the time. I would, and I'd have one hand on my helmet. There's no way I would be treating it that casually. They're treating it the same way. It reminds me so much of the Apollo moon guys when they were out there driving the moon buggy and playing golf.
And by the way, that letter that you got, what was that guy? Oh, he didn't give his name. He was anonymous.
Yeah, it was anonymous.
Yeah, when I read it, it doesn't sound as good until like you hear your hypnotic breast enhancement voice reading it.
Damn you. I was wondering when you'd pull that up. Thank you. I had to actually look up what breast hypnosis was. And I actually remember reading about that years ago, that hypnosis can be used for a whole bunch of different things, including breast enlargement.
Did we go to sleep with a cassette player on, right? And your breasts will grow overnight?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I remember this.
Wow.
And so even though it was flattering that when the Taylor, the woman who asked me if I was actually one of the people that does hypnosis for breast enlargements. No, I'm not. But thank you, Jonathan, for bringing up that sore and tender subject.
That reminds me of a joke, by the way.
Go ahead.
Do you know why they call it a wonder bra?
No.
Because when they take it off, you wonder where the breasts went.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank goodness our audience skews male. Because any women that are listening to this, please, and now I get to turn on you. The opinions of Jonathan from Jersey are
some highbrow conversation.
let's just focus on a flat Earth and not on.
All right. So some interesting things. We're in the last segment. So some interesting things have happened in the flat Earth movement. Oh yeah, I'm going to keep pushing this, by the way. That is the 18th, and I'll bring it one more time at the end of the show unless I forget. The 18th, this Sunday. Please remember, if you have anything to do with the flat Earth and you want to get involved, all we're asking is hit them where it hurts, and that is any forum that you see, any NASA story, any space-related story that looks official, please go on there. You don't have to be You don't have to give your real name, and post something and say, look, question what you're being told here. That space is not what you think it is. The world is not what you think it is. How do you know? How do you know it is what it is? Do you know because you read it somewhere, or because somebody told you? And by that, I mean a member of the United States government or another government. So with that being said, there were a couple people that really did some interesting stuff this week in the flat Earth world. One was, and this guy, he's diligent. I'll give you that. A guy called Seven Trumpets Prepper. I don't know if I mentioned this one to you, Jonathan, where he was basically a prepper site, and he was doing all this stuff. And all of a sudden he comes out, and he's got, 20,000 followers plus. And he comes out and he says, you know what? I want to talk about flat Earth. And he makes a multiple part series, and his people, his followers really started giving him a shellacking for it. They started really questioning where he was going, his motivation, and he's sticking with it to the point where now he's being interviewed by people, and it's fantastic. I'm glad. And again, the resistance is heavy out there, but good for him. And the other group, which was a big one, and I think I mentioned this one at one point, a fairly big conspiracy thing called All Time Conspiracies. This guy's got like 750,000 followers, and he decided, I'm sure like anybody, he decided to actually address it and put like a 4.5-minute video where he was kind of playing neutral, not necessarily on the fence, just saying, okay, here's the arguments for and against. I'm not going to say anything either way. And the comment section in that just blew up. I know people say that all the time, my phone blew up, stuff like that. But no, this actually, it was, I don't even know how many thousands of comments are in that thing now, but it's crazy because it's just it was like a street fight, just battles and battles that were going on in there, and so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, kudos to both of them.
Yeah.
I haven't watched anything from the Seven Trumpets Prepper, but I totally get why he would finally bring that up, because I'm sure he's probably watched some of your stuff and everyone else in the Flat Earth community.
Yeah.
And Seven Trumpets Prepper, that's in reference to
Revelation,
the Bible.
Yep.
And I totally get it, because if and I'm kind of laxed on this. Jonathan knows where I'm coming from. I don't really talk about this too much because it's not my show,
Yeah.
And definitely not trying to turn anyone off, but when you look at people like that, like Mark just said, he's taken a beating over that stuff, but he stands underneath the principle of bringing it up because he obviously believes in the Bible, and the Bible, like many other religions, vastly describe a flat world.
Yeah, he's going at it from the Rob Skiba angle, and and I get a lot of people that'll ask me in emails, because I know I defer to Rob a lot, and they say, are you a Christian? I go, of course I'm a Christian. And I shouldn't say it as glib as that, but I was raised very very born again Christian, vacation Bible school, Sunday school, youth group, the whole 9 yards. And then when I got to college, it's like a lot of people, I did a lot of other things because I grew up on an island and I was very isolated, so I just kind of expanded my borders, so to speak. But yeah, I know. I'm really amazed that the guy that held his ground, and like Rob, he was out. He got out because he was just getting hammered on, and he finally came around because of the positive support, which again is which makes me smile every time. I get excited every time I look at this thing, because it's not your average obviously it's not average run of the mill conspiracy, but it's so bigger, and it's got so many neat aspects to it from a heart standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. It makes It gives people have written me all the time. They said after they were done crying, they realized there was a lot of hope here, which you can't say about anything else that's come through the conspiracy world. And I'm wondering if it should be classified as something. In fact, I kidded about it with an interview the other day where, because he said, "Is it even really a conspiracy?" I go, "Not really. The only conspiracy part about it is that our government, because it's older than our government, but our government was involved to keep it a secret, That's the only conspiracy aspect of it. The rest of it's just fact.
If I may,
Sure.
can I have a free reign on that topic for a second?
Sure. You know what? It's the end of the show. Why not? What you got?
Okay, cool. I'll just say this. I respect everyone's beliefs in this world as far as it comes to religion. I'm definitely not hopping up on a podium to try to convert anyone, but I feel the same way how a lot of other people do on this topic now, because when you see this thing, when you see the flat earth and you understand it, you understand the model, and there's so many holes in the globe theory, and then you look back, and if you're a person of faith, and it's, you look at certain verses out of the Bible where, it directs you towards creation being underneath the flat earth model. It says out of scripture that the earth is, not movable. It's immovable.
Yep.
It's built upon pillars. The firmament spreads over the top. It divides the waters on the earth from the waters above, and that's always a truth, according to the Bible, that, people just stopped preaching on a long time ago, because modern day science, all these learned men of astrology and, pseudoscience have basically paved the way for people to doubt, what's written.
Yeah. And
now, looking on it with new eyes, you have a whole another newfound faith for what is being written and as being true.
True. Yep. Totally hear you, man. It's gonna. I challenge a lot of people, regardless of how exactly you define your faith, because there's a lot of people that have different things. I challenge anybody to get through the whole flat Earth concept and remain an atheist, because it is really, really tough once you get that part. Once you get that far, the universe starts closing in on you, and then you realize, like, maybe not as wide, not this insignificant and unaccountable speck that's flying through space. So
yeah, because there's ramifications for everything at that point.
I totally agree with you. Hey, there's one more letter I forgot to read, and I had this checked, and I wanted to bring this up, because this is from the mailbag, and I know I'm doing the mailbag a little late, but I wanted to bring this up because it was something that something you talked to me about the GPS, and it's kind of tied to what you and everybody else has been saying, Sean, especially the flight instructor. And this is from a guy named Mike, and he said, I worked for a Chicago Merchant Exchange as an operations manager, and was excited to get a job there because they have one of the most advanced networks in the world and in intercontinental satellite hookup from Chicago to New York to London. I was super excited to go to the main data center in Chicago. I pestered the head of networks to show me the satellite hookup. I was disappointed and surprised to learn that quote-unquote satellite hookup did not exist. They have a ground-based, high-speed microwave hookup to New York, which in the industry they like to call satellite. The networks guy was in his 50s, ex-military. He told me all the GPS and satellite links are all ground-based microwave antennas, which have been in existence since the 1950s. He's never heard of someone actually using a real in-space satellite. No satellites, just ground antennas. And he put a link to that. And I think I saw something to that effect, the same sort of thing. There was a video on it a little while ago. It's sort of similar, where there's been other guys that have kind of talked about that.
So wait, are you saying there's no Dish TV satellite?
Oh no, there may be Dish TV satellite. No, that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't think they're bouncing off of objects that we describe as satellites.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I'll take that story, which was interesting. Remember that letter I read from the guy that was saying that that Lockheed Martin was putting those special blimps, high altitude blimps that could reflect transmissions, right? Uh-huh. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, I was going, wait a minute, don't you remember from the last show we did, if that was only 1 week ago, where the air traffic controller said, hey, you know who runs the database on the GPS system? And he said, it's Lockheed Martin. And I thought, wow, that's kind of a coincidence, isn't it?
Well, no, what I'm asking, the reason I'm asking is because if somebody got in their car and they knew where to drive, right, or they work for Dish TV, they should be able to go and knock out the satellite from the ground.
Well, there was a guy part of Lori Frary's group, and I think even Patricia Steer interviewed him, where he had said he had worked. I've gotten a couple emails from these guys, and I'm waiting for someone, just the right person to talk to. But I've had several people that have said that because there's quite a few people in the Dish tech world, and they were saying that the trajectory, what they're pointing at, is bouncing off something that is going somewhere else that's actually on the ground. That it's not what you think it is, and they know this, but again, nobody questions it because as long as they point the dish to a certain spot and it works and everyone gets their sports channels, who cares, right?
So maybe they were giving us another clue in that movie They Live, because that thing was on a building,
right
at the end. That was a satellite uplink.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just to speak on the satellite thing, it's hilarious that you bring that up, because I want to go drive down like any rural area, like where there's an apartment complex. You go look outside, look at their mounted satellites, and tell me that they're not all pointing in the same direction, and they're not pointed straight up.
No, they're not.
Pointed at a tower.
Yeah, they're it's shallow trajectories most of the time, and you may be right. And what I was kind of hinting at, because I still get these emails every week, and that is because people talk about, and you know this, Sean, where people talk about that you can bounce stuff off the atmosphere, right? But if it's an enclosed structure, then how much easier is it even then? Because then you're probably bouncing something off technically you could fire a solid object off of an enclosed structure and bounce it. Yeah. You could fire a tennis ball far enough.
Yeah, I just don't buy it. Common sense dictates to me from everything I know, and I know quite a bit about RF propagation and all that stuff and what it's taught from a textbook. I can tell you right now, the satellite you use to watch, your Sunday football, go look at that thing. It's not like it's hooked up to a motorized actuator that makes it stay aligned to that orbiting satellite.
Excellent
to keep your
point.
Signal strong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because you'd think you'd be adjusting those things constantly. In fact, the civilian market would never be able to use it without a motorized tracker.
That's what I'm saying. It's pointed at a ground unit to pick up a signal. You can do RF here on ground.
Yeah.
That's all it's doing.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because my uncle, he had a log cabin up in the mountains of Vermont. And he used to have one of those rotating bases for his regular TV antenna, and he would have to adjust it every now and then. That's even though it's ground based, old rabbit ear type TV.
Yeah,
but same principle. And so, like you said, you have all these fixed satellites, and they always tell you point south, whatever the direction is. But that satellite doesn't move.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a test. I wasn't even going to talk about it because I was afraid a lot of people wouldn't get where I was going at with it, but
sure.
I actually went down and looked at an apartment complex a couple days ago and saw where all of them were pointing. And I actually drove. I used my my little map system that I got built around. I use a overlay with the AE model now. It's really cool. I'll actually give you the link for it so you can look it up. But I went in the direction that they were pointing the best I could, and lo and behold, about 10 miles away, there's a huge tower, and it was one of the subcontracted towers that works underneath Dish.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm coming down to visit you after I was talking to him earlier, Mark, and I found out where he lives, and it's not that far away from me by car, so I think we're going to run some tests, but we're not going to discuss it on air or Skype.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, so far he's hung in with us though for this last segment, so he hasn't been dropped yet. Yeah, that's good. And again, the DoD monitoring this transmission. It doesn't surprise me if they were really, really serious. I think Sean and maybe us would have been contacted at some point. But again, it's tricky because the stuff we're talking about should not be an actual topic. It should have nothing to do with national security. You can't go to somebody and say, hey, you can't talk about flat Earth because it's a national security issue. Because the second you do that, you're giving it a lot more credit than up until now that it's has been warranted.
Than it supposedly deserves. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got 6 minutes left. The couple quick things, couple reminders for people out there. One, if you haven't checked out, please look into the Emory College down in Atlanta, Georgia. They are doing literally a town hall required meeting for their first year students, first of its kind, where they're talking. It's the initial article was called "Flat Earth Hoax," but it's interesting because the title of the town hall itself is straight out of Matt Boylan's playbook, which is called "How Do You Know," and they're encouraging people to discover their own evidence. It's like, look, don't take the books for granted, which I think that'd be kind of a contradiction for a college, because isn't a college really mostly about, hey, just regurgitate what we say to you. Who knows? Maybe the person behind this, because it seems to be fairly it happened, got put together fairly quickly. Maybe the administration, someone in there has been kind of looking into this and saying what, and they did it very close to Columbus Day. There's no accident here on what they were doing. So
honestly, you want to know what I think it's going to turn into? What? I think it's going to turn into an open mic forum for every self-proclaimed astrophysicist buff to come in there and try to do absolutely publicly destroy anyone that comes with a constructive argument.
Maybe they're gonna. I know they're gonna break up into student groups, and these are freshmen. So they're what, 18, 19. But what could be interesting there is because it's going to be too tempting for them, especially kids nowadays. They're just going to go on their phone and start punching this in. They're just going to Google flat Earth and see what happens. And that has really changed since, say, last year. The amount of content, especially if you hit videos nowadays, if you just type into any search engine, you say flat Earth and type, hit videos, it's amazing. The amount of and Jonathan and I used to joke about it a long time ago that Vsauce used to be number one on the list. Where's that video now? It's got 7 million hits and nobody even looks at it anymore. Yeah, because it's just it's just been buried in this sea of all this flat Earth content, which is just so wonderful to see. So
I still try to determine whether or not he believes it.
Who, Vsauce?
Yeah,
I don't think he does. I don't think he cares though, because
I don't think he does either.
I don't think he does. The guys, the big ones that a couple other quick things. The big ones, that we're still waiting for, because just about every conspiracy channel has covered this in one way or the other, except for Alex Jones. And there's rumblings there that actually may materialize into something. I hope it does.
Does it have to?
No, but does he have
to show up with his microphone and take over the whole thing?
I know. I don't necessarily want him to cover it either, but it has to happen, doesn't it? I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say, but
yeah.
Let's talk about the flat Earth, but first some tangy tangerine.
I mean, if he does, honestly, I don't want to harp on him too bad, but I don't.
The exposure's worth it, I think, in my opinion. It's just a question of is he going to interview it. I know that whoever goes on his show will be labeled, somewhat in certain circles. I know that.
I'll say this: 2 words: Bill Cooper. Enough said.
Thanks, man. So whoever goes on his show is going to die.
No, I'm just saying, Bill Cooper called that guy out a long time ago, and that's it. It's never been.
I mean, Alex almost got killed, so yeah.
Well, maybe. Well, we'll see. But other than that, there's still some little mainstream rumblings here and there, and I'm hoping that it goes forward. It seems to be. We just keep getting bigger and bigger players. I don't know why. Again, why people are just. It's become this new super hot topic. It's like it's going somewhere. I wish I'm. Just every week something new surprises me, and can't wait to see again who contacts me next. Who else? Go ahead.
Can I say one thing though? And you're very humble about this always. Like I think in the original, I guess it was Math and this is the last time I'm going to mention this, and Eric, that were pushing the flat Earth for the past couple of years, and then you came along, and it's like a whole different camp. There's like It's like a whole resurgence, a whole new You really got this thing going. You
Well,
you lit the fuse earlier this year.
Well, thanks, man, and that ties into my fireworks thing.
Oh.
And no, thank you. And I did try. Well, I tried to make myself come off as transparent and as least crazy of the conspiracy world. But again, and with a minute left, I'd like to do a quick pitch, and that is, look, for anyone who's out there in the industry, if you have something, if something's been resonating in you regarding the flat Earth, you've listened to the Navy people, the surveyor, the flight instructor, the industrial valve guy. If you're working in a sector, I'm not necessarily saying if you're working for NASA or you're a radio telescope operator or an astronomer or an astrophysicist, because you got jobs to think about. But if you know something, it's something that's been bugging you, and you want to get it off your chest, I'll read it for you. If you don't want to go on the air, but if you want to go on the air, we'll put you on, and we'd love to have you. So, hey, thanks very much, Sean, for being here, and you're great as always. And thanks to the industrial valve guy, and thanks to you, Jonathan, once again. Hope your mouth feels better.
Thanks, man.
See you guys.
Yeah, good night.
Next time.